money laundering, corruption, and bribery. According to a recent Global Financial Integrity report, developing countries have been losing $1 trillion a year and rising since 2011 as a result of corrupt or illegal deals, many of which involve anonymous companies. Hidden ownership is a particular challenge in the extractive sector. Natural resources belong to a country's citizens, and the benefits of oil, gas, and minerals should reach them. The Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, the EITI, is the global standard that requires countries and companies to disclose key steps in how their oil, gas, and mining revenues are managed. Sadly, particularly in countries with weak organization and governance, rights to extract oil and minerals are sometimes given to incompetent and irresponsible companies that do not intend to benefit the people that live in the country. This also poses problems for honest companies that don't know who they're doing business with. The African Progress Panel reported that the Democratic Republic of Congo lost at least $1.36 billion between 2010 and 2012 from the sale of 5 undervalued mining deals. These deals were given to offshore companies whose owners were hidden behind a chain of anonymous companies. In Ukraine, a recently created company with an ambiguous background in the oil and gas sector was awarded the license to the largest gas field in the country. The deal was put on hold and then cancelled when the legal owner refused to disclose the beneficial owners behind the company, delaying the development of this nationally important resource. In February 2016, the 51 EITI members agreed new rules, requiring that all oil, gas, and mining companies operating in their countries must disclose their beneficial owners. The government must also publish this data. It also requires public officials, so-called politically exposed persons, to be transparent about their ownership in oil, gas, and mining companies. Publishing the identity of those who are given the right to exploit resources helps prevent conflicts of interest. EITI countries are pursuing transparency in company ownership to prevent tax evasion, corruption, and money laundering. This will help ensure that there is a level playing field for all companies and that governments get the revenue they are owed. Few countries have so far made this information publicly available, so this step by EITI countries will make a big difference. And it sparked a wider reform effort. Many EITI countries and others have committed to establishing public registers of beneficial ownership. There is a growing call for clarity on who the real owners are, but reform is only half of the picture. Law enforcers, civil society, and others have a responsibility to scrutinize the information and to take action to hold to account those who misuse anonymous companies. Then, together we can ensure the extractive industries can benefit everyone. Visit www.eiti.org/beneficial-ownership to find out more. Millions of companies are established all over the world every year. But sometimes the owners of those companies are anonymous and untraceable. This hidden ownership of companies is wide open to abuse. In early 2016, the leaked Panama Papers exposed how corrupt public officials and tax evaders all over the world too often use anonymous legally registered companies to organize and hide money laundering, corruption, and bribery. According to a recent global financial integrity report, developing countries have been losing $1 trillion a year and rising since 2011 as a result of corrupt or illegal deals, many of which involve anonymous companies. Hidden ownership is a particular challenge in the extractive sector. Natural resources belong to a country's citizens, and the benefits of oil, gas, and minerals should reach them. The Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, the EITI, is the global standard that requires countries and companies to disclose key steps in how their oil, gas, and mining revenues are managed. Sadly, particularly in countries with weak organization and governance, rights to extract oil and minerals are sometimes given to incompetent and irresponsible companies that do not intend to benefit the people that live in the country. This also poses problems for honest companies that don't know who they're doing business with. The African Progress Panel reported that the Democratic Republic of Congo lost at least $1.36 billion between 2010 and 2012 from the sale of 5 undervalued mining deals. These deals were given to offshore companies whose owners were hidden behind a chain of anonymous companies. In Ukraine, a recently created company with an ambiguous background in the oil and gas sector was awarded the license to the largest gas field in the country. The deal was put on hold and then cancelled when the legal owner refused to disclose the beneficial owners behind the company, delaying the development of this nationally important resource. In February 2016, the 51 EITI members agreed new rules, requiring that all oil, gas, and mining companies operating in their countries must disclose their beneficial owners. The government must also publish this data. It also requires public officials, so-called politically exposed persons, to be transparent about their ownership in oil, gas, and mining companies. Publishing the identity of those who are given the right to exploit resources helps prevent conflicts of interest. EITI countries are pursuing transparency in company ownership to prevent tax evasion, corruption, and money laundering. This will help ensure that there is a level playing field for all companies and that governments get the revenue they are owed. Few countries have so far made this information publicly available, so this step by EITI countries will make a big difference. And it sparked a wider reform effort. Many EITI countries and others have committed to establishing public registers of beneficial ownership. There is a growing call for clarity on who the real owners are, but reform is only half of the picture. Law enforcers, civil society, and others have a responsibility to scrutinize the information and to take action.
after me. Good afternoon, everyone. Whoa. Welcome back. This is our last session. We won't be very long. We understand there are some particularly heavy traffic out there, so we'll be relatively brief in our remarks. Let me start with a couple of summarizing things from some of the workshops that some of my colleagues have done. Look, we all carry one of these. We all know that we can't cross the border unless we have a passport with us. I think it has become quite clear that hidden ownership is like a poisonous sticky glue, or like someone said, yesterday's chewing gum. It keeps together natural resource-rich countries with tax havens, and it enables a secrecy that essentially robs the nations. Of course, our purpose is to serve those nations, serve those that are being robbed, and try to do something about this. I think there is one person that we heard from more than anyone, and that was Vice President Obasanjo from Nigeria. He, of course, talked about how Africa has lost over $1 trillion over a 50-year period, and lost over 50 billion annually to illicit financial flows. Immediately after he spoke, someone came up and said, you know what? In Asia, we have probably lost more. So for us in the developing world, the Vice President continued, and especially in Africa, breaking the wall of secret corporate ownership is an existential matter. It is for us literally a matter of life and death, he said. Masked or hidden corporate ownership is deeply implicated in the sad story of our underdevelopment. We also heard about how shell companies are a particular big part of the problem. We've heard from many of you, and we really hope that it has been a fantastic networking and learning opportunity. There have been 15 different workshops over the last day and a half. There has been over 100 speakers. The conference has helped reignite the public interest in beneficial ownership, not least here in Indonesia, where it has been covered extensively by the media, including in the largest daily and weekly outlets. Here on the front page, how the government will issue a decree on beneficial ownership by year end. In the social media, we have had messages of support from every continent. Over 100,000 people have engaged with us online and shared content from the conference. Let me then turn very briefly, not on the why, but on the how. And along the way, again, Vice President Obasanjo reminded us of that there will be resistance in many countries by vested interests to the passage of a comprehensive legal framework for the implementation of an effective beneficial ownership disclosure regime. He also reminded us of the need, as we begin this journey, to balance interests. And I think many of us were particularly reminded of the need to balance the needs that the fight for security, for safety, the fight against terrorism, while at the same time a fight for openness and transparency. There is a balance there that we need to find. We also heard about how extractive companies did not welcome BO disclosure at first, but when explained that BO transparency would create equal market conditions for investors, they start to warm for it. We heard, for example, from the Kyrgyz Republic, from Ulanbek Ryskulov, who talked about this. A somewhat similar theme was picked up on how the private sector is warming to this by James Ensor from BHP Billiton, by setting out that it's not actually particularly burdensome for companies to disclose. And he also gave a number of reasons why it is in the private sector's benefit and advantage. We heard some speakers talk also remind us of the financial sector. The legal sectors spend huge amounts checking ownership on due diligence that is made difficult by the lack of openness. This should not need to be costly and burdensome. Again, transparency, if it is truly meaningful, should reduce bureaucracy, not create red tape. Again, Vice President Obasanjo, we must be careful not to frame this campaign as a zero-sum between society and business. It should be something that we can all stand and win from. We heard in a number of the workshops how beneficial ownership registers can help improve tax collection and prevent illicit financial flows. But clearly, there is a significant amount of work to be done to ensure full compliance. And in summarizing the takeaways, is the one message that I think has trumped all others. It is, you all come from different countries. The problems are similar, but the solutions are different. We must be very careful in a simplistic way of thinking about one size fits all. This is something that you come back to in a number of the different conversations. People like Kari Vltava from the World Bank and Deputy Minister Ghazal Habibyar from Afghanistan spoke to this theme, and many others of you. Setting up a register, for example, in Afghanistan will be very different from, for example, in the UK. And by the way, there is no doubt that the UK has provided considerable leadership with its general register. It's been fantastic to provide a fora to learn from that. But we should be careful. It's not that we learn how to do it from them. That's a bit too simplistic again. Rather, it's a matter of learning from their mistakes, from the challenges they faced. And we're very grateful for our British colleagues having been very open and in sharing those. In terms of, we will need to, when we look at how we actually establish our systems in practice, we need, of course, to look at the legal frameworks, the regulation, and the registries need to take into account the very specific country context, as I've just said. We heard, for example, from Sierra Leone, we cannot provide BO transparency without legal reforms. Reforming mining codes is a key to BO disclosures, said SAR one day. So I think one of the more technical or reminders is the need for mandatory, the need for legislation to push it through. One topic that came up in a number of workshops was on sanctions and verifications. For instance, the UK law provides for imprisonment up to 2 years and financial penalties for false reports. But we were at the same time recognized of a risk-based approach. One needs to start with, quite often, maybe just one sector. And again, of course, we are here primarily starting with the oil and gas sector and its particular situation. When it comes to verifications and also sanctions and making sure that it gets right, Global Witness and others from civil society remind us of that once it's out there, the users, civil society, will help in their own assessments and flag mistakes to the authorities. It will be a little bit like when Microsoft publishes a new software version, it remains a beta version for a long time that users help improve. Another technical area that has been a number of conversations about that we think requires solutions that fit the various circumstances are when it comes to the issue of thresholds. We heard about the ongoing discussions in the EU to lower the current thresholds from 25%. It was interesting to hear about Tatiana Shevchuk from Ukraine showed how some BO will limit their ownership to precisely 24.9% to avoid having to report. So I think it's quite clear that attention has to be paid to those regulations, how it plays out in practice. And I believe that Jack Lord was one of many who emphasized that oil, gas, and minerals are so profitable that lower thresholds should be used. And I see some nodding here. Systems, as I've already touched on, need to be enforceable. This was raised time and again. For example, when it came to politically exposed persons and the legal frameworks around them. And I see some nodding from our Indonesian hosts. We need to think about implementation effectiveness from the outset. And there again, I come back to the British. They have pulled off something quite remarkable. Let's not try to create perfect systems that we may not be able to effectively implement. We need to ensure that registers prevents and not protects corruption. And we have seen far too many times when we have created ideal systems, we have come from outside with good solutions, but in reality, they weren't so practical. I think another thing that we have really learned over these days is that it requires interagency collaboration. And I was very pleased to have a meeting this morning with our hosts that had brought in many ministries, authorities to ensure precisely that. Tax authorities and financial intelligence units need to work more closely together to help prevent tax evasion and illicit financial flows. Company registers and license will also need to work together to ensure that changes in ownership of license holders is tracked. And there are many other examples of this kind of interagency work, how that is required. I think here, without overselling it, in some countries we can use EITI multi-stakeholder groups better. They can do a little bit of bringing that together. Towards the end, it's also clear that the data needs to be used. Analysis of beneficial ownership data is difficult. It's fully possible. Some participants even tried to solve real-life case studies where real ownership was hidden. Complementary information will be needed to make analysis possible, and it needs to take users into account. If stakeholders have public access, it really has to be practically meaningful. Or we heard again from some of the companies earlier today saying that it has to be useful transparency. And I think here also organizations like Open Oil have demonstrated what can be done. I think that here that is an appeal to a job we all have to do in terms of helping friends in civil society, in the media, in the government, parliamentarians, and remind them how these kinds of information can be used. Look, I think that these were some of the summary comments that we wanted to bring together. There will be a brief report from this. There are all presentations that we receive will be uploaded on the website. We will hope that the website and the meeting here will provide a useful network. Now, we're going to return to a number of the country commitments that we started yesterday. And it's my pleasure to invite as a first speaker with the brief remarks from the Deputy Chief of Staff of the President, Januar. Pak Januar, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jonas. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, for the benefit of the people outside this room, let me speak in Bahasa Indonesia, because I think our colleagues of the media who are at the back, perhaps it's better for them to have more accurate quotes rather than trying to decrypt what I want to say in English. Bapak-bapak dan ibu-ibu sekalian, terima kasih atas seluruh waktu dan kesempatan yang diluangkan untuk hadir di dalam konferensi ini. Perkenankan saya menyampaikan komitmen pemerintah Indonesia mengenai BO ownership. Sesuai amanat konstitusi bangsa Indonesia, Undang-Undang Dasar 45 pasal 33 ayat 2, untuk memastikan kekayaan alam dipergunakan sebesar-besarnya untuk kemakmuran rakyat, maka pemerintah berkomitmen untuk melakukan perbaikan tata kelola dan peningkatan transparansi di sektor ekstraktif. Transparansi BO, beneficial ownership, adalah salah satu langkah untuk mempercepat capaian amanah ini. Pemerintahan yang bersih, efektif, demokratis, dan terpercaya. Visi ini dituangkan oleh Presiden Joko Widodo dalam program Nawacita yang kini menjadi dasar dari program pembangunan pemerintahan Indonesia. Di sini transparansi BO adalah bagian dari upaya pencegahan korupsi di Indonesia. Sebagai anggota G20, Indonesia terikat untuk menerapkan apa yang disebut dengan High Principles on Beneficial Ownership and Transparency. Sebenarnya Indonesia sudah memiliki proses pembentukan badan hukum, namun belum secara spesifik mengintegrasikan informasi BO dan menyediakan mekanisme agar publik dapat mengakses informasi BO tersebut. Ada dua tantangan yang dihadapi Indonesia. Satu, integrasi data. Dalam format yang interchangeable, interoperable, menjadi pekerjaan utama dari inisiatif BO ini. Yang kedua, verifikasi data. Namun pemerintah Indonesia melihat sistem keuangan yang berintegritas adalah salah satu dari sesuatu yang penting dan harus diwujudkan. Tanpa ada sistem keuangan yang berintegritas, rasa percaya tidak akan hadir. Tanpa ada kepercayaan, investor tidak akan datang. Bapak Ibu yang terhormat, untuk mencapai target pertumbuhan ekonomi tahun 2018, Indonesia membutuhkan investasi sekitar 5.000 triliun rupiah atau 375 miliar dolar. Potensi investasi dalam negeri sudah ada sekitar 3.000 triliun atau 225 miliar dolar. Sehingga masih ada kekurangan sekitar 2.000 triliun atau sekitar 150 miliar dolar. Tidak perlu takut bahwa transparansi beneficial ownership menghambat investasi. Justru sebaliknya, negara yang melakukan transparansi BO akan makin disenangi oleh investor. Ini posisi kami sebagai pemerintah. Perkenankan saya menyampaikan perkembangan bahwa saat ini peraturan Presiden mengenai BO sudah hampir mencapai tahap akhir. Sehingga tidak lama lagi pemerintah sudah bisa memulai membangun database BO. Payung hukum ini diharapkan dapat menjawab kedua tantangan yang saya sampaikan tadi dan ke depan untuk maju lebih progresif. Namun, Bapak Ibu sekalian, payung hukum adalah satu hal, implementasinya adalah hal lain. Bukan berarti semua sudah selesai. Pesatnya perkembangan di sektor keuangan membuat aliran uang dan aset bisa begitu mudah berpindah dari satu negara ke negara lain. Maka transparansi BO ini tidak bisa hanya dilakukan oleh satu negara. Collective action is ultimately important, sangat penting, baik di dalam negara maupun antar negara. Bagi kami, hari ini adalah hari yang monumental, karena kita duduk bersama, kita bekerja bersama, kita berbagi bersama, kita saling belajar. Lebih dari itu, ini adalah kesempatan kita untuk memulai collective action ini. Kita perlu memperkuat komitmen, dan kita akan mendengar dari teman-teman yang lain, dan juga semuanya ini dalam kerangka untuk membentuk collective action yang lebih kuat. Indonesia sudah memiliki standar keterbukaan informasi keuangan dan perpajakan sesuai standar dunia, antara lain Financial Action Task Force dan standar G20. Dan kami ingin tidak lama lagi, dalam 1-2 tahun, Indonesia akan memiliki transparansi BO yang lebih baik. Dan ini akan kita mulai dari sektor ekstraktif. Terima kasih.
That's great. Thank you very much. That's wonderful. And now I give the floor to our colleague from Guatemala, Vice Minister Julio Contreras.
Muy buenas tardes. Voy a hablarles en español, en el idioma de nuestro país. Excelentísimos señores ministros, viceministros y demás autoridades, señoras y señores presentes, quiero principiar dándole gracias a Dios por la oportunidad que me está dando de estar este día acá y haber vivido y compartido esta experiencia. Quiero darle muchísimas gracias al gobierno y a las autoridades de Indonesia por habernos recibido y por estar en este país. Me siento muy honrado. Quiero darle gracias también a todos los funcionarios y autoridades de Haití por este evento tan importante. Y en nombre del gobierno de Guatemala, agradezco la invitación a esta conferencia Haití sobre los beneficiarios reales. El Estado de Guatemala, presidido por el presidente Jimmy Morales, está totalmente comprometido con la transparencia y la rendición de cuentas a todo nivel, y en especial hacer todos los esfuerzos para la transparencia de los beneficiarios reales. Es por ello que en Guatemala, desde el año 2008, con la Ley de Acceso a la Información Pública, la cual garantiza que todas persona interesada, sin discriminación alguna, tenga el derecho a solicitar y tener acceso a la información pública en posesión de las autoridades, con el propósito de garantizar la transparencia de la administración pública y de los sujetos obligados. Esta ley reafirma el compromiso del Estado de Guatemala de trabajar con la mayor transparencia posible. A través de esta ley, cualquier ciudadano puede solicitar expedientes, oficios y resoluciones a cualquier institución del Estado y otras instituciones que manejen fondos públicos. Asimismo, es posible solicitar la información relacionada a contratos, licencias o concesiones en el caso de las industrias extractivas. En el tema particular de las industrias extractivas, Guatemala es parte de la Iniciativa para la Transparencia Haití. Desde el año 2011, siendo en la actualidad el segundo país de la región que cuenta con el estatus de cumplidor, y nos encontramos trabajando para mantener este estatus luego de la próxima validación en el año 2018. La Comisión Nacional de Trabajo para la Implementación de Haití en Guatemala, cuyo champion y presidente es el señor vicepresidente de la República, doctor Jafet Cabrera, tiene el compromiso de trabajar por la transparencia y rendición de cuentas en el sector extractivo principalmente. El informe de conciliación 2014-2015 fue presentado recientemente y nos encontramos en los preparativos para la elaboración del próximo informe de conciliación de los años 2016 y 2017. Asimismo, hemos llevado el mensaje y objetivos de la EITI a nivel regional a través de ejercicios focalizados para compartir información a nivel municipal y departamental en la República de Guatemala. Por otra parte, no existe anonimato de los representantes legales y accionistas o beneficiarios reales de las empresas en la vigente legislación de Guatemala, ya que cualquier ciudadano puede solicitar esta información en el registro mercantil. Las licencias y contratos otorgados para exploración y explotación de minerales y petróleo pueden ser encontrados fácilmente en la página web del Ministerio de Energía y Minas. Asimismo, las compras y contrataciones del Estado son públicas y transparentes. Cualquier persona puede tener acceso a convocatorias y licitaciones de compras de bienes y servicios que utilicen fondos públicos. El reto en el mediano plazo es lograr que toda la información se agrupe en un lugar más accesible y sea de fácil uso para el público en general, creando un repositorio central de la información relevante. Aprovecho este espacio para reiterar el compromiso del Gobierno de Guatemala con la transparencia y la rendición de cuentas, especialmente en las industrias extractivas. Asimismo, estamos trabajando en una nueva política minera y en una propuesta de ley de minería con cambios sustanciales alineados a EITI. Buscamos el desarrollo con responsabilidad social, ambiental, la total transparencia y combate a la corrupción para el bien de todos los guatemaltecos. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. And now from Ukraine again, Olena Sukmanova, the Deputy Minister of Justice.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, respectful participants of the conference, dear representatives of non-government organizations, first of all, I would like to express our gratitude on behalf of Ministry of Justice of Ukraine, on behalf of government of Ukraine, for invitation to be as a part of such a respectful ITI conference. And I would like to emphasize the development of beneficial ownership and transparency is one of the key and strategic priorities for Ukrainian government. And now, let me announce our official commitment about proceeding our policy on transparency of beneficial ownership. The government of Ukraine commits to proceeding the implementation of the process of transferring the information of beneficial owners to the global registry, and in this regard, working together on the development of a common technical solution for the electronic transmission of data of beneficial owners of companies in the form of structured data for their subsequent integration to the global register. Continuing joint work with our partners on the development of blockchain technology at state registers and land cadastre. Development of the first development index of blocks in the public sector and the receipt of the first data audit note for a public organization in order to implement comprehensively all the commitments on ensuring transparency of beneficial data being recently undertaken. Sticking at adoption of guidance to companies on how to define and identify their beneficial owners in order to facilitate the elimination of the existing and emerging challenges with obtaining consistent quality beneficial ownership information. Creating the system on the adequate verification of ultimate beneficial owners. Continuing work on ensuring Ukraine's beneficial ownership data to be of the high quality, linkable, and highly usable for business, government, and civil society, contributing to various global and regional efforts to improve collection, sharing, and disclosure of beneficial ownership information across jurisdiction, contributing to the creation of a set of common internal standards for beneficial registers. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. That was very clear and concrete commitments. We love to hear that, and we look forward to hear how you progress. And now we have Vardan Gevorgyan, who's the Deputy Minister of Energy, Infrastructure and Natural Resources from Armenia. Thank you.
Thank you. Dear Excellencies, colleagues, first, I would like to extend our gratitude to the organizers of this great event here in Jakarta. The Armenian delegation is delighted and honored to be present at this conference. The conference couldn't take place at more convenient time for Armenia, because at the moment the MSG is in the process of developing the roadmap of beneficial ownership, which is to be published by January 1, 2018. The exchange of information and experience during these 2 days showed that all of us are in pretty much initial stage, and both challenges and impacts are still to come. The challenges are difficult to address and solve unless it's a joint effort. An effort not only within an individual implementing country, but also within EITI community worldwide. I'd like to mention that disclosure of beneficial ownership is not only log of published names or reforms in legal framework, but also establishment of new ecosystem in our countries, which will lead to transparent governance, responsible business, demanding and cooperative civil society. I believe that the main driving force of the purposes in our country should be the strong political will and commitment of the government of the Republic of Armenia. Thanks again, and hopefully next time we'll share our progress with each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We wish you too very good luck with that. And last we have Aldo Gerbani, who's an advisor of the Ministry of Finance in the Dominican Republic.
Against money laundering and the financing of terrorism. This advancement has sparked debates within multiple sectors of society with relation to the benefits this legislation carries and its implementation mechanisms. The biggest headway this legislation brings is defining beneficiary ownership, making it mandatory for all legal entities, as well as entities without legal personality, to disclose their beneficiary owners. Pursuant to such law, beneficiary owners are those who enforce effective control or own directly or indirectly a legal entity with or without legal personality, as well as individuals who benefit from final transactions, even though they may not appear as name holders. In the Dominican Republic, the Directorate General of Internal Taxes is the entity in charge of keeping beneficiary ownership records. This data is required when incorporating a new company, or when a company that's already incorporated is filing the annual tax declaration. This law does not exempt any sector from revealing the beneficiary owners, including the mining sector. In addition to this, in the draft of the new mining law, it has been considered to introduce the concept of beneficiary ownership in order to promote transparency in this sector.
That's great. Thank you very much. I'm back to the Vice President of Nigeria. He said yesterday, we also need to move away from the illusion of a magic bullet. In fact, there are no magic bullets in the quest for openness and governance. He went on, we should not look at things like the EITI as a one-stop shop for reversing the resource curse. The EITI is a wonderful tool which must be mainstreamed and combined with other tools to ensure that natural resources are more prudently managed and better deployed towards both economic growth and sustainable human development. Whilst uniform standards are necessary, we should not make a fetish out of them. In a number of conversations with our hosts, with the Deputy Chief of Staff and many of his colleagues, we've heard about how Minister Darmin and others are interested to see if things like the EITI can help in bringing improved transparency to commodity trading, to the imports to Indonesia, and so on. We've also heard that President Honorable Joko Widodo, one of his top priorities is to fight corruption here. But he's equally clear that the way to do that is by tackling the systems, their way of doing things. We should be careful in thinking that we have solutions. We might bring a little bit of support, and we should constantly think about not coming here or anywhere else with our wonderful systems and tools and acronyms and so on, but rather acknowledge the ownership, acknowledge the systems, and say, how can we help in improving your systems? Maybe our little standards and things can be a network that can bring lessons, good practice from other countries, and so on. And it's very much in that vein we have been working on this conference together with our Indonesian hosts, and we are very, very grateful for this and what we have put on together. And I would first like to very much thank once again all our partners, the many partners behind it, NRGI, Publish What You Pay Indonesia, and many others. I particularly also want to thank some of my own colleagues, Gay, Shem, Ines, and Vic, that have worked tirelessly over the last couple of weeks to make this happen. So to them and all the other colleagues, if I can have a big applaud. And lastly, it reminds for me then to thank our own hosts. Once again, thank you ever so much. It has been a wonderful to work on this together. And in particular, on the hosting side, I wish to thank Ibu Diani of Bappenas, who has coordinated this extraordinary effort. So a big applause. And then it is my pleasure to invite Ibu Diani up to come here and to take over and close this conference. So from us at the EITI, thank you very much and travel safely.
Thank you, Jonas. So first of all, I would like to apologize under the minister that he has still at the presidential palace to meet with the governors and also with the head of the region. So I would like to read his closing remarks. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, Head of the higher state institutions, Ambassador of the participating nations, Ministers of state parties, governors and regions or representative officials of state parties, civil society official, representative of development partners and other international agencies, head of civil society organizations from within and outside the country, academics and journalists, and Mr. and Mrs. who attended the opening of the Global Conference on Beneficial Ownership Transparency today. First of all, let us pray and thank God because of His blessing, we have been able to complete the Global Conference on Beneficial Ownership in Jakarta for 2 days from October 23rd, 2017 to today, October 24th, 2017. I would like to appreciate to the speakers, moderators, facilitators, contributors, and all participants who has participated actively for these 2 days. I also want to give my regards to the International Secretariat of Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative and Cross-Ministerial Committee, which has been well coordinated since the preparation and throughout the implementation of this conference. Distinguished participants, the 2 days conference has discussed several issues related to promoting the transparency of beneficial ownership information as part of a wider anti-corruption agenda. Some of these issues include how to overcome anonymity of the company that could act as an important key in fighting corruption, hidden ownerships and illicit financial flows, how to know which companies have obtained licenses in oil, gas, and mining, identify the corruption risks at the level of procurement execution, downstream and supply chain, standard and commitment of beneficial ownership transparency in various global initiatives, complex corporate structure, and how to define politically exposed person as well as their linkages in asset declaration, and how is a cooperation between government and civil society in an effort to encourage beneficial ownership disclosure, establish a legal framework for the benefit of beneficial ownership transparency, how to create beneficial ownership records, how to deal with public companies and to disclose share of ownership, how to utilize and analyze beneficial ownership data, and how to ensure data reliability and proper sanction implementation, how to reach companies in providing guidance on preparing beneficial ownership reports, and the last, how to access beneficial ownership data and implement standard disclosure format. All of these themes discussed during 2 days can be briefly classified into several categories. First, in relation to the legal or regulatory framework regarding the disclosure of beneficial ownership. Second, on the prerequisites and technical standards that need to be prepared, complemented, and developed to ensure the disclosure at beneficial information, ownership information. And third, the urgency of beneficial ownership disclosure within the framework of preventing corruption and enhancing the government revenue. The speakers and participants from various countries have shared their knowledge, experience, and ideas as expected in this conference as a forum for sharing a practice and building system. As we know, EITI requires the implementation of beneficial ownership transparency in the mining and oil industry in 2020. Therefore, various countries has developed roadmap towards beneficial ownership transparency, and this two-day conference has helped all parties to understand the broader context of the idea of beneficial ownership transparency. Beneficial ownership transparency system can be strengthened through the multi-stakeholder cooperation in various countries especially resource-rich countries. Thus, cross-border cooperation becomes a mutual necessity for this initiative to be well implemented in their respective countries. Distinguished participants, as we know, not many countries have strong regulations that records and disclose beneficial ownership that we have discussed during today's. And some countries already have regulations, governance, and policies to encourage the beneficial ownership transparency. I believe that this today's conference has been beneficial for participants in exchanging experiences and ideas among different countries, so that each state can strengthen the real work that results from this conference. First, we need to establish a clear and firm legal rule on the importance of beneficial ownership disclosure, rules of company registration, arrangements of institutions that manage the beneficial ownership database, and other technical rules. Secondly, we need to develop an integrated database system between company ownership, tax database, including tax disclosure and tax payment fulfillment, either by individuals or companies. Third, by referring to the principles of open government, it is necessity to establish a common protocol to open data format in the context of beneficial ownership disclosure. Fourth, the effort to encourage the beneficial ownership transparency requires strong multi-stakeholders cooperation, including cross-border cooperation, and therefore cooperation with civil society, journalists, businesses, academics, observers, and practitioners from various disciplines should be built in a spirit of jointly building a system to reveal beneficial ownership within the framework of preventing corruption and enhancing the benefits of natural resources that is more optimal for the community. In closing, I would like to give my regards again for the cooperation and active participation of all parties in organizing this conference. Hopefully, what is generated in this conference can be beneficial to all of us. And with this, the Global Conference on Encouraging the Transparency of Information Beneficial Ownership in Jakarta from October 23rd, 24, 2017, I declare finished. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And the last, on behalf of our government and also from our minister, we would like to give you small gift, small batiks that hopefully that you can wear, but hopefully that for you that are women, maybe because this is coincidentally we bought this morning, so I hope that for the deputy, for the minister, you can give to your husband. Because we prepare only for men. So once again, please, MC.
Ya. Baik, terima kasih kepada Ibu Diani, kepada all of the statement of government commitments, kami silakan untuk dapat kembali ke tempat, dan kepada Bu Diani kami mohon dengan hormat untuk tetap berada di depan, karena selanjutnya akan dilakukan penyerahan cindera mata kepada beberapa nama yang akan saya sebutkan berikut ini. Ya, kami silakan dengan hormat kepada para pembicara statement of government commitments untuk dapat menempati atau turun dari menempati tempat yang telah disediakan atau kembali ke tempat. Kami silakan. Baik, Bapak Ibu hadirin yang kami hormati, selanjutnya adalah penyerahan cindera mata berupa batik, dan berikut nama-nama yang akan saya sebutkan, maka kami mohon dengan hormat kepada nama-nama berikut untuk dapat maju ke atas panggung. Pertama, Minister of Mines and Steel Development from Nigeria, Mr. or Mrs. Kayode Fayemi, please come to the stage. And the second one is Minister of Mines from Cameroon, Mr. or Mrs. Ernest Gbawa Bobo, kindly please come to the stage. And the third one, Minister of Finance from Cameroon, Mr. or Mrs. Alamin Osman May, we kindly invited please come to the stage. And the fourth one, State Minister of Mines from Ethiopia, Mr. or Mrs. Reda Tewodros Gebrexiaber, please kindly come to the stage. The fifth one, Federal Minister of Ministry of Budget and National Planning from Nigeria, Mr. or Mrs. Zainab Samsuna Ahmed.
Yeah, because I think all of you just already mentioned that it's already gone, so maybe we will distribute of these batiks afterwards, because I believe that some of you is already has to go to the airport. So maybe we can distribute to you, but because it's only 51, so I don't know how to distribute to you. Yeah, that's okay. Thank you very much. Dibagi aja.
Kami mohon kepada Bapak Ibu tamu undangan untuk tetap meletakkan alat bantu penerjemah atau headset di dalam ruangan dan tidak membawanya keluar ruangan. Sekali lagi kami informasikan untuk tetap meninggalkan headset atau alat bantu penerjemah di dalam ruangan dan tidak untuk dibawa keluar ruangan. Well, ladies and gentlemen, for your information, please kindly leave the headset inside the room and do not bring it to the outside the room. Once again, for your information, ladies and gentlemen, please kindly leave the headset on the chair or inside the room and do not bring it to outside the room. Thank you.